Hey guys, it's Kyla at the MJC, and I am back with another video on the proposed parenting plan. Today we are going to go through the section on childcare, all the way down through the section on school here. But, as always, before I get into that, just a reminder that nothing in the video is intended to be legal advice. It's a video, so I'm not able to analyze your specific situation to evaluate whether these forms are correct for you, whether a court is likely to grant what you're requesting or agreeing to, or to determine whether what you're asking for or agreeing to is what is in your best interest. And so if you have questions about those sort of things, I would definitely recommend getting some legal advice. Here in Milwaukee County, you can get legal advice for free through the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. If you're not located in Milwaukee County, you can get in touch with your clerk of court to find out what resources are available for pro se litigants in your county. All right, so let's hop into the childcare section. So if your children are old enough that they do not need daycare or childcare or babysitting or anything like that, you're just going to check 1, and then you're going to move on to the next section. For those of you that have children that do require childcare, here you're going to put who is going to provide them. So you're going to put the childcare provider. So a lot of people will put their name. They'll be like, oh, Jane Doe. Nope, we're actually thinking like so there they would be thinking, oh, Jane's going to pay for it. We're going to be talking about payment down here. Up here, it's like, what is the provider? So like the Learning Nook, is going to provide it. Or maybe John's mother is going to provide it. So that'll be, Cindy Smith is going to provide it, or whatever. So who is going to provide, that childcare? I'm just going to make it Awesome School After School Program. Here, and then here you're going to put how you guys will divide that cost. So you can say 50-50. You can say one person will pay all of it. One thing I do want to note, because sometimes we'll have somebody say, you know what, I'll just pay all of it, and the other person will pay 0. In that situation, hypothetically, in this case, it would be saying Jane would pay all of it and John would pay 0. If a childcare cost comes up on John's time, he could contact Jane and say, hey, pay for it because it says you're supposed to. So just be aware of that. I think sometimes when people say they'll pay for all of it, what they mean is they presume that the kids are mostly going to be in their in their placement when they need childcare, and that they're just going to cover the costs that come up while that's happening. But if you say you're going to pay all of the childcare costs, and John sends them to, Awesome School After School Program as well, then you might end up paying the bill for the whole thing. So just goes to show it may be worth talking to an attorney, getting some legal advice about this. But anyway, you'll just want to make sure these numbers add up to 100%. So it can be 75, 25, 50, 50, 100, 0, however you want to do it. Next, we have transportation issues. So here, assuming there is any placement with the other person, you'll just put how the child is going to go through the placement. And I will note that this is like your default, because I know especially a lot of joints will be like, well, mostly we pick the children up, or mostly we drop them off, but, what if we want to do something different? This is like your agreement. This is what you can enforce in court. But if you're joint and, one of you calls up and says, hey, I know I'm supposed to drop the kids off, but I just can't get away, could you come pick them up? And the other one is willing and able to do that, you can do that. The court's not going to come out with their court police and say, hey, you didn't follow the order. As long as you guys are both okay with that, you can deviate in an individual circumstance, but this is your enforceable order. So if you guys disagree about what's going to happen, this is what someone can come back to the court and say, hey, they're not following the order like they're supposed to. So just with that sort of preface, for those of you who are worried that you're going to have to fill the whole other section by saying, well, hypothetically, if this happens, we could do this, you may not necessarily have to do that. Again, get legal advice to make sure in your circumstance that general principle is going to hold true. But for the most part, this is kind of like your default, what you'll fall back on if you're not agreeing. So you can either say that the joint petitioner A or petitioner is going to do all of the transportation, so that's to and from all of them. You can say B is going to do the transportation to or from every placement, or you can say we're going to split it. And if you're going to split it, you'll either say generally the parent with the kids will drop them off, that's number 1, or generally the parent who doesn't have the kids is going to come pick them up, that's 2. If those don't work for you, again, there is D. D is other. If you're not proposing that the other person have any placement, then D would be where you could say, no transportation. And you'll spell transportation right, because no placement with respondents, or, whoever you're suggesting there not be placement with. So we've got that. We'll go ahead and say John and Jane will just have the person who doesn't have them go pick them up. Then you're going to indicate where transfers will take place. A parent's home is a really common one. So, if John just drives over to Jane's house and picks the kids up there. Some folks, especially if you don't live that close to each other, might pick a halfway location. So a place that's pretty close to halfway that's convenient for both of you. The 8th Street McDonald's. Something like that. You can pick an other location. One thing that comes up really commonly here is people say, well, what if I want it to take place at a police station? As far as filling out the forms, you can propose that. That is one of those things where if you're concerned enough about interacting with the other person that you're saying you think exchanges need to take place at a police station, we would recommend getting some legal advice. Also, depending on where you are, there may be rules and regulations about how, if you can do that at a police station and all that kind of stuff. So all of that is a long-winded way of saying, in the forms, you can put whatever you'd like. So you could write a proposed location here. But it is just a proposal. So keep in mind, I can also say I'd like the location to be Bill Gates' house, but that doesn't mean the court's going to order it. And so same thing, you can propose what you'd like here. If you have another location that you want to suggest, you'll put that there. But just be aware that especially in situations where you are concerned about your safety, you may want to get legal advice to sort of determine, to come up with a safety plan and figure out what is going to both keep you safe and be approved by the court. So we've got that there. The other thing you could do under other location could be if you're going to need a third party to do it. So if you and your spouse have a restraining order or a no contact order of some kind, you could indicate that through here. If it is a restraining order that comes out of a domestic violence case, that would probably go under D. And then you can say your exchanges are either going to be supervised, and if so, you'll put the name. Again, at a neutral public site, that's where it could be McDonald's or at the park or at Starbucks. Maybe at the home of a third party, or if you're not allowed to have contact, you could indicate here in other, if there's a third party who's willing to. So again, maybe John and Jane, we say Cindy Smith will, transport children to and from placement. So you've got sort of those options there. All right, so we've got all of that. And again, for our purposes, we'll say John and Jane are just going to do it in their homes. Transportation costs. Here, it's just who is going to pay those transportation costs. You can either say the person who incurs them. So that would be, when John drives over to pick the kids up, he has to pay for his gas. If Jane drives over to pick the kids up, she has to pay for her own gas. So you can do that. If it's going to be split some other way, you can pick B and explain how those costs will be paid. Child support, we already know, hopefully, if you've already done the marital settlement agreement, you're either going to say if you just decided you wanted it to be based on that equation, so either the percentage standard or whichever formula you were in, you can check 1. If you deviated from that, so you decided you wanted to do something different, and you propose something different in your MSA, we check number 2. And then usually, if we've got this printed and we're handwriting, I might just note in parentheses here the marital settlement agreement, so it's really clear that That's what we mean by the attached proposal, because obviously, or the proposed marital settlement if you're doing a proposed one, because obviously when these are all scanned into the computer, which is what happens to them when they're filed with a court, it's not always clear that those are attached documents, even though you are filing them sort of as a unit. Last but not least, school. So you're going to list the kids' names. And then you're going to list their school or school district. So if you have the specific school, we can do awesome school. Awesome school here. Or maybe your child isn't old enough for school yet, so you just go, well, I know they're going to attend, MPS, but I don't know which school, or I know it's going to be awesome school district, but I don't know which school yet. So you can do that. Some people, they'll be like, my child is really, really young. I don't know any of this yet. Again, you can theoretically leave this blank if you know or have, so for older kids, if your kid actually has a school, if they are school aged, then we would go ahead and list the school or school district. If your child is too young to need school yet, if you know what school district you think they should attend, we would still say list that school district or that school. If Sally attends awesome school, and even though Susie isn't old enough, we know we want her to attend awesome school, I would still list it here. But if you just go, our kid is 6 months old and I have no idea, haven't thought about it, you can go ahead and leave that blank. Again, the more things that are blank, the more likely it is you may have problems. But our recommendation is put a school or school district if you know one. And then last but not least, you're going to put how any education costs will be split. Just like all the different percentage areas we've been showing, again, the total needs to be 100. You can split them 50-50 or any other way you'd like. So you can say, it could be 1 and 99, 0 and 100, 25, 75, whatever you'd like to do with that. All right, well, that is all for this form. I'm just going to add back in awesome school here because I like a good complete form. All right, that is all for this form. Thank you guys, as always, for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you have additional questions about the proposed parenting plan or any of the other Part 2 documents, we are happy to help you guys out at the Milwaukee Justice Center, located in room G9 of the Milwaukee County Courthouse, at least during non-pandemic times. That's where you can find us. Otherwise, thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all go out and represent yourselves well.